Yo, yo, back at it.
What's going on, everybody? Bitcoin Bros here, back at you guys with another live stream. If you're new, we have live streams every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I really appreciate everybody for joining here today. We have 19 people with us so far, so we're going to be getting into Bitcoin. We're going to start with the charts. We're going to talk about strategy, recent news on MicroStrategy, and also we're going to be getting into some of the just traditional financial news that is, messing with the markets, and give you guys our thoughts on where Bitcoin's going, where it's at right now. And if you're new, make sure to like and subscribe. Nothing we say in today's video is financial advice. But let's go ahead and just start with the charts. We'll pass it over to Sean. We'll check out the BTC charts here.
So before we get into the charts, make sure you guys like, subscribe, share with friends and family, repost, retweet. We live stream this on X, YouTube, and also Rumble. We appreciate all of your support. So getting straight into it, we're going to take a look at the price action here. So let me pull up my screen so you guys can see what we see. Okay, so right here, we're seeing Bitcoin come in at 112.496, 112.5K. So what do we see? What do we anticipate? So could we see a farther pullback in the market? This is on the weekly chart. So the past 2 weeks, if we zoom into this price action, let's get rid of a few of these lines. There's been a lot of people that have been pretty fearful because we went up to a new all-time high of 124,000, and since this recent pullback, we went all the way down to around $112,000. So as far as percent on this pullback, you're looking at almost a 10% pullback. The market's giving gifts, guys. So, we have to backtrack a little bit because a lot of people first look at this pullback and they'll be like, well, oh my goodness, the top's in, Bitcoin's about to be going down further and the bull market's over with. But, financial markets are a unique thing because basically it's really the only market where people see reduced prices and run or sell. They don't look at it as a sale. So when the price was 124 and you didn't want to buy, well, guess what? The market now gave you a gift and you can buy now at 112.5. And if you have a dollar cost averaging strategy, which we'll talk about that before the video is over with, before we're done with this live stream, we'll talk about different strategies and what that looks like. You'll be able to get more Satoshis per your DCA strategy. So, and if you look here, this dotted line here, which is around the 112 mark, if you tune into our channel, the Bitcoin Bros post videos daily, and we've talked about this in multiple videos, this is the line in the sand to pay attention to. Could we go below 112 and still be in a bull market? Yes. Now, looking at this RSI below and also comparing it with the price action, the RSI has been putting in some bullish divergences. So textbook of what a bullish divergence is, you see down here, we were up to almost the 86 range in the relative strength index. And then we had a cool off and then we came back up and put a higher low in. So when this happened, the price action then put a higher high in. So when you see a given indicator put a lower high in while the price puts a higher low in, that is a textbook bearish divergence, meaning that could this be a peak? Potentially, but in this case, it was not, because as you see, we came down and did melt down. We had a peak of, during this rally, up to almost 110 and came all the way down back to 74,000. And looking at this floor here, the floor was set around 43 on the RSI. And then we came back up, then put a new all-time high in, and now we're trading above this previous resistance, this dotted line here, and just trading right above it. So could this be a textbook bump and run? When I say bump and run, basically you would blast through this resistance, which we ran into once, twice, a few times here, almost back here, but we got exhausted, came back and flip resistance to support before we see a continuation to the upside. That's what we could see. But also, if you look at these RSIs, we're not quite down to this floor yet. So could we come down and also retest this upper trend line, where this trend line has been your friend for quite some time now? If we zoom out and you can see this a little bit bigger or better in the chart, you see since really January of 2024, what happened here? This is when the ETFs got passed. So this trend's been your friend for over a year and a half now, and we came up, put a higher high in, and then came up and we broke through this temporarily. This was a fake out. People thought, we were coming down lower, but then we end up ripping higher. Same thing, rinse, repeat, came back down to this trend line, faked out again. This was actually a multi-year resistance level that we came up and kissed right here, came back and kissed that yellow dotted line, which we talked about during that time frame. And right now, same thing, rinse, repeat. We bottomed out, hit our head on the peak, and right now the RSI could be being reset. So if we come lower, where this trend line is right now is around the 105 range. Could we wick below that and even come back down to 100,000? That could be what's in the cards. But like the 2 times before, and even the 3rd time, we had a wick below this candle as well. This trend line as well. We could get that reversal and then get that potential final rally for the bull cycle. We'll have to reassess and see what happens if this price action below with the RSI comes down. And then once we get back up to this range here, what happens? Do we break through this downwards resistance and have a back test before we see a continuation for higher price action? And could this be a continuation to the bull cycle? It could play out a lot of different ways. So that's what we see for Bitcoin. All discounts in the market are buying opportunities. Do we think the bull market's over with? Not quite yet. So that's Bitcoin. Let's go to the next tab. We're going to look at MicroStrategy. And once again, this is another gift that the market is giving you. Looking at the price action, this has been stair-stepping its way up since October of 23. And if you look to the right, this is post-split prices. So this was $310 before the first 10-to-1 split. And so they're showing $31 here. And we've just been stair-stepping our way up, almost coming back and back testing this upward orange line. And we're sort of been establishing a floor somewhere near or around the 46 to 48 range. And if you look here, we are there right now. Now, we've had bearish divergences as well, but we haven't had a bearish divergence yet with this downwards trend right here. We see it on Bitcoin, but not MicroStrategy. So we want to pay attention to where we are right now because we're at a very high level of confluence. If we look to the left of the charts, you see this peak way back in February of 2000. That's where this dotted line came up to way back almost 25 years ago. So that is the line in the sand to where we want to pay attention to with where we currently are trending down towards. We didn't quite get to that dotted line just quite yet. That would take strategy down to 319 as far as the overall price action. If we break below that, that'll be something to definitely note and pay attention to. Right now, this orange trend line, we are below, and this floor that has been established around 364, we broke through, but there is levels of resistance and support. Support that it could hold, and this just could be a fake out before we get continuation to the upside. Remember, strategy, most likely is going to be getting included in the S&P this year. And if you look at any given price action for the S&P, any given price action for a company that gets listed to the S&P, what happens? There is a blast of euphoria that causes the price action to appreciate to the upside. Now, we've showed you this before. This looks like some type of bull flag that could be playing out. Technical target is up to this green box, anywhere between $900 per share up to almost $1,100. So a huge appreciation from where we are right now. So that's strategy. And what we're going to look at as far as the last chart, we're going to take a look at MetaPlanet. And Sorry about that. I think I stopped sharing, so let me reshare my screen. So MTPLF 3350. This is the US ticker. In post market, it's at 563. Now, this is on the 2-day chart, and we've seen a gap that potentially needs to be filled. So for those that aren't privy, when markets open and close, there's gaps that get filled. So for instance, if we zoom into this price action back here, just to show you an example of a gap, this candle, because the 2-day chart is 2 days worth of trading. So it opened here, closed here, and then in the next session, it opened way down here. So there was a gap in the price action from $3.77 all the way down here. And most times than not, these gaps get filled. In this case, this gap got filled the next 2-day trading session. You see this big wick up, which means it typically gets filled the whole way or a part of the way. So when we look at the gap that I'm referencing is down here where it's roughly between $5.60 to $5.33. So we haven't came that low yet. We had a wick down to 549. So we have pierced into this gap. Will it get fully filled? There's no rule or rhyme that says that necessarily has to happen. But just keep in mind, if we look to the left of the charts, we also see a lot of confluence around this dotted line, around the $5.20 range. We hit our head here once, and we actually blasted through this and are coming back down. So there's not a lot of price action. We could look at 3350 to see, a longer time frame. And let's take a quick look at that really quick. Let me change the tabs. 3350 is right here. So you can see that this dotted line here around 718 was hit. And this is on the 2-day as well. And because this is a different market, this is a Japanese market, we actually don't see that gap. That gap got filled right here back in May. So the line in the sand to pay attention to here for this price action is 724. This is the Japanese yen. So we could come down a little bit further. As you see, this trend line is your friend until the end. We've been respecting this since October of 24, bouncing off of it. We had a couple breakdowns here, but we held to the upside. And right now we're back down to this trend line. So this isn't the time to be fearful. This is the time to load up. If you see lower price action, Bitcoin bros will be buying. Once again, not financial advice. So before we go to any other news or anything else, did you have anything to say, Aaron?
Yeah, I can share one thing here. Let me share this chart. Let's see if I can share here.
And while he's pulling that up, you guys, we appreciate the love and support. Make sure you retweet, repost, share with families and friends, like, subscribe. We appreciate all your guys' support.
Definitely. Yeah, and this is, I think a lot of people get shaken out during these time periods of fear in the market. But when you're investing in, anything, especially Bitcoin, you're going to have volatility. And you can see, actually, let me zoom out a little bit here. You can see if we zoom out, this is where the bottom was for BTC all the way back here in November of 2022. So you can see since November of 2022 for BTC, if we look at from the bottom to where we are right now, we're up 600%. So that's a 7x. So there's a lot of volatility throughout this entire move up 600%. So you can even go back all the way to June of 2023. Bitcoin was trading at around $30,000 and it had a 17% move to the downside. And you have these moves where Bitcoin really moves to the downside. Back here in March, it was at around $75,000 and it went down around 32%. Just earlier in the year, it peaked at around 108 in January and it went down another 32%. So you can't let this noise shake you guys out. Right now we're down from the top around 10%, like Sean was just saying. But this is normal during bull runs. Obviously, this could turn around in a bear market, but we do still believe we're in a bull market here. And I think a lot of this noise here, you gotta kind of just ignore that and just continue to dollar cost average in. And that's why I think a lot of people just don't invest. They invest in the short term, but you should be buying Bitcoin and have a 5-year time horizon. So if you're buying up here at 110, you should be looking at where's Bitcoin going to be 5 years from now. Not where is it going to be next month or the next 3 months or next year, but you got to have a long time horizon so you know that the probability is in your favor that 5 years from now Bitcoin is going to be a lot higher than where it is today. That's the only thing I wanted to add there. I think you're on mute, Sean. Me.
Sorry about that. Yep, Bitcoin treasury companies. We're showing this. We've talked about this to ad nauseum. But the main thing to pay attention to is the top 10. You're seeing strategy all the way through Coinbase. These companies are starting to fight over these positions. And as time progresses, this top 100 is going to morph drastically. Some companies down here may get some private investment money to buy a tranche of Bitcoin that'll pump them up to the top 10. And you got companies like MetaPlanet that are still chucking away and buying on a daily basis. So, there's only 21 million Bitcoin treasury companies, and the top 100 companies jointly own about 983,000 Bitcoin. And a majority of this buying started 5 years ago with Strategy. Strategy was the first mover in this space, 629,000 Bitcoin. And a majority of these other companies have came over the last 6 to 12 months. So really, this is the early innings of this game. And, there's only 21 million that's ever going to exist. You can't print no more. You can't be debased. You can't delete any. It's embedded in the code. Understand the law of scarcity when it comes to Bitcoin. And if you're not dollar cost averaging, not setting up your own family's treasury, your own company treasury, whatever your strategy is for your personal investment thesis, time, isn't running out. There's still more time, but, within the next probably 5 to 10 years, we're probably going to be seeing $1 million Bitcoin. It could be sooner. That's just being extremely conservative.
Definitely.
And then we can pivot to this next slide here. The M2 money supply is basically, just how it sounds. It's a money supply per given jurisdiction globally. The U.S. money supply, Japanese money supply, Chinese, and the Euro market. These, I know you really can't tell by these charts, but these are all at new all-time highs. So historically, when you look at the business cycle, the money supply, as the money supply expands, risk on assets expand. The S&P securities, anything that has any value add into the financial market will expand to some capacity. The fastest horse, which everybody that's tuning in should know, is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin has direct correlation when the business cycle and M2 money supply expands. It'll be interesting to see what we see next month when it comes to the FOMC. There's a lot of speculation of a rate cut. I've also seen that, that we potentially might not get a rate cut at all this year, and the Fed might just be late to the party like they were before. What's your take on that, Aaron? When it comes to, what do you see next month for FOMC?
For FOMC, I'm going to rely on the data here. If you look at the Fed rate monitor tool, I think it's a 78% chance last time I checked that the Fed was going to, 73% chance that the Fed will cut rates right now. But the big catalyst that people should be looking at is we have the job numbers. I believe that's going to be the 5th or 6th of September. And then we also have CPI that's coming out in September before the FOMC meeting. So CPI, the jobs numbers, and the PPI numbers. So if CPI and PPI come in hot or higher than expected, that would, signal to the Fed that, hey, maybe we shouldn't do a 25 basis point cut. But if the jobs numbers, come in bad, or, if the job numbers come in bad, they might actually cut even though inflation is going up. So there's a lot of variables. I personally think that inflation will continue to come down. I think CPI and PPI will continue to come down for the rest of the year. We did have a hot PPI number this month, and that's what freaked the entire market out. But I think that's just maybe a temporary blip, and I think it's going to come down, and they're going to eventually cut rates, and it'll be good for Bitcoin and other risk assets. And the name of the game is they're going to continue to print money. It doesn't really matter what happens in the short term. If they raise rates and Bitcoin goes down periodically, like temporary, over the long term, they're going to continue to print more and more dollars. They're going to continue to debase the dollars. And if they raise rates too high and it causes a recession in the United States, their answer to that is going to be, hey, we need to print more money to bail our own self out. So all roads in the long term lead to higher prices for Bitcoin, because there's just an infinite amount of dollars in the entire, M2 money supply and things like that. So, it's hard to call in the short term what they're going to do next month. I think, if I had to guess, I would say 25 basis point, but wouldn't be surprised if inflation comes hot in the short term and they raise rates, and then, that could cause a recession. Bitcoin, the entire market goes down, and then they're going to bail. They're going to just print more money, and then Bitcoin's going to go up. And, it'd be a great buying opportunity if it happens. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what he said, they have these FOMC meetings on multiple times throughout the year. The next one is in 3 weeks and 5 days. Here's the countdown here, but you can see the previous week probability of no rate versus a rate hike. A rate cut. Previous week's probability was 90%, and yesterday probability was 74%, and the current probability is 73%. So, right now it's definitely trending down, but this is very volatile, just like the Bitcoin price action. And you sort of got to just watch it as we go into the meeting. This could be back up to 90% when we go down. When we get to the meeting, it could end up trending down. So we'll continue to report as things move forward. So let's share this next tab here. And so basically, this is a picture of the dollar. $37 trillion supply, which means that's how many dollars are in circulation. There's no supply cap, meaning that, as Aaron just said, that you can just continue to print money. And that previous slide we show with the M2 money supplies all at all-time highs. Basically, each given jurisdiction, has, the pound, the yen, the dollar, the peso, whatever it is. Each respective government can continue to print these monies, can print this money into basically infinity. There's no cap at all. There's only one node, and that's one money printer. And over the last 6 months, here's a fun fact: 25% was printed in the last 6 months, which means, that's what people don't really understand. That's the hidden tax. You gotta pay income tax, you gotta pay your federal taxes, you gotta pay sales tax, you gotta pay all these different taxes, but the hidden tax is that debasement. So there was 25% more dollars that were pushed into the economy, into a given market over the last 180 days. So what's that mean if you're holding dollars? If there's more pushed into the market, the dollars that you're holding are getting worth less and less. And then 1% own 30% of the overall supply. So 30% of 37 trillion is roughly about, I think, 2.1, roughly $11.1 trillion owned by 30%, or owned by 1%. of the overall population, which means it's very, very centralized. And this is backed by the US government. So all this basically is doing is giving the testament as to if you're not fully invested into Bitcoin, or you're just getting into Bitcoin and trying to go down these rabbit holes, understand the thesis, understand why you or your loved ones, whether that's your spouse, brother, friend, why you should invest in this. You know, holding, scarce assets are always going to appreciate as the dollar continues to debase. So that's sort of the name of the game. And I know, as far as getting a stronger hold into Bitcoin, that there was I think a dollar cost average thesis that you wanted to touch on and share, Aaron.
Yeah, I can pull that up here. But yes, like the dollar is like the actual meme coin. The worst meme coin is like you probably want to invest in Dogecoin or Shiba Inu over the dollar. But I didn't like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. 25% was printed over the past 6 months. Yeah, that's a massive amount.
So the dollar has no bottom, has no floor as to how much they can print, which means Bitcoin has no ceiling.
Nope. Going to infinity. Yeah, and this is something that I just wanted to share. If we always recommend a dollar cost average is something that we both practice. When the market's down, obviously you can take bigger risk, attack the market harder if you have, a lump sum of money, or if you want to even get more risky and take on leverage, you can do that. But always having a dollar cost average in the Bitcoin is always a decent idea, as long as you can afford it, whatever you can afford. But just want to show you what's realistic here. Just over the past 5 years, if you just took $100 every 2 weeks, that's around, just $200 a month, and you dollar cost average that for 5 years, your total spent, the total amount of money that you would have invested is $13,000. That would have equated to around 0.3876 Bitcoin, and that total dollar value today is around $43,000. And that's just over a 5-year time horizon. Now, is Bitcoin going to perform the same that it did over the past 5 years over the next 5 years? It potentially could. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. But we can also look at, if we go back 10 years here, see if I might have to refresh the page. If we go back, let's just say 10 years from here, bi-weekly, you can see the numbers even get even bigger. Like you would have acquired around 8 Bitcoin. You've only spent $25,000, and that total Bitcoin dollar cost average value today would be $900,000, and that's just putting in $100 every bi-weekly, every 2 weeks, and that's over the past 10 years. So you can kind of get paint yourself a picture of where your Bitcoin investment could go, go towards in the future. Now, these returns here aren't guaranteed, because Bitcoin was obviously also a smaller asset in 2015, but like we just showed you guys, Bitcoin's going to continue to go up. You might not get this return, but you'll probably still get a good return over the next 10 years. And it's better than holding, these dollars, which are losing a massive amount of value. You guys just saw 25% have been printed over the past 6 months. And that's just a massive amount that you're losing to inflation. So we always recommend, it's just good to have a dollar cost average, what you can afford. And if you can afford more and you can put 1,000 in every month, you can see how the numbers get drastically bigger. So that's why we recommend dollar cost averaging, because you're opting out of the system where they're just going to continue to print money, and you're opting into the system of Bitcoin, which is the hardest asset in the world. And there's so many people who believe in Bitcoin and believe in the future. And, we believe $1 million Bitcoin's coming very soon. So that's where we're putting our money. Not financial advice, but hopefully this helps some people.
Can you go back to make it from 2020 to present day?
The start date?
Yeah, past 5 years.
Past 5, okay. 2020. At $1,000?
No, let's do $100.
$100 bi-weekly?
Yeah, bi-weekly is fine. Thank you. So look at the total spend once again. It's 12.3K, so $12,300. I know some people that haven't even gotten to the Bitcoin space probably have this sitting around, probably have this as equity in a home, probably are saving it in a bank account, maybe in a shoebox, whatever the case may be. But if you did this over the past 5 years, you got 0.32 Bitcoin over the past 5 years. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, right? It goes from 12,000 to 36,000. So you roughly 3x your money. Every dollar you invested turned into 3. Now, fast forward 15, 20 years, because this is a long-term investment thesis. It's not a short-term get-rich-quick scheme. If Bitcoin goes to $1 million, which we're seeing the hyperbolic S curve of adoption start to trend towards that way, Bitcoin is going to go to $10 million. That's what people need to understand, because right now we're seeing small zombie companies and some of the small nation states get involved in Bitcoin. They're starting to dollar cost average, trying to build out their Bitcoin treasuries. They're doing the same thing we're talking about doing on a personal micro level at a massive level. So basically, fast forward to when Bitcoin's 5, 10, let's say use $10 million, you in this 12.3K, you got 0.32 Bitcoin. So that 12.3K in that scenario is now $3.2 million. Now, will that happen in 5 years? Unless there's something cataclysmic that happens with the dollar, could happen. Dollar would be worth next to nothing, but it's going to potentially just sort of be a slow grind up and have that 30 to 40%, year over year return, and or that CAGR, if you may, that what his Bitcoin's been given. So once again, if your investment thesis is 2 years, 4 years, yeah, you'll potentially be profitable with a 4-year time horizon, but time in the market is better than timing the market. So the more time you invest, then the more appreciation you'll have. Like as Aaron just showed right here in this scenario, 12.3 turns into 36,000 over the past 5 years. Now, can you do one more thing, Aaron, and change to 2015 once again? So that's roughly a 3x on your money. And expanding your time horizon from 5 years to 10 years, you would invest 25.3K, and that turns almost into 900K. So as far as like the appreciation, it's you can invest into real estate, you can invest into stocks. Once again, if you are just investing into the S&P, you're getting 7% year over year on average, and you're just sort of treading water. And why do I mean that? Because you're getting a 7% appreciation, but the dollar is debasing in a 7% year over year fashion. So basically, your nominal value is going up, but your purchasing power is just doing this. It's trending sideways, meaning you're just sort of maintaining your purchasing power. You're not getting ahead. The dollar value looks bigger, but you're not able to acquire more things because the S&P is doing a 7%, 6 to 7% on average, where if homes outpace that, you're losing purchasing power on trying to acquire more real estate, like physical real estate. So once again, you got to look at the CAGRs per given asset that you're invested in. And Bitcoin, there's no second best as far as an overall investment thesis. The numbers don't lie. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. Remember that. And what's that X? From 25 to 900, you'd be looking at almost a 40X. That's like a 36X. So you go from a 3X over 5 years to a 36X over 10 years. And you're not paying any property taxes. You're not dealing with any tenants. You're not dealing with any water leaks. You're not dealing with any black mold. You're not dealing with any upkeep. You're not dealing with any headaches of running the business, paying property or paying employees out, the whole nine that comes with running businesses. Now, not saying it's not good to own a business, because that's considered proof of work. But what do you do with your money as you're getting that income? Where are you plopping that money as your savings thesis, your investment thesis? That's sort of the question you have to ask yourself. Not financial advice, but once again, the numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah, and just wanted to share this just to go along with everything we were saying there, just to show. So I think some people think they see where Bitcoin has been, and they see what the price is now. They see is close to all-time highs, but they don't see the potential of where Bitcoin could go, and what Bitcoin is up against. And you can see right here, this is a little bit out of date. Obviously, Bitcoin is around a $2 trillion market cap now. Gold is around 20 trillion, but you have a total global asset value of around $900 trillion that Bitcoin is attacking. And I think, like, even with these Ethereum treasury companies, Ethereum is, going to be like a global computer, but I think people are like undervaluing Bitcoin and kind of like overvaluing Ethereum and some of these other altcoins, because Bitcoin is directly attacking all these markets. Gold is a $20 trillion asset right now. And there's been a lot of people, a lot of, what do you want to call them? A lot of people who are very reputable in the investment landscape who have said, you could name a lot of different names: Cathie Wood, Tom Lee, Michael Saylor. List goes on, that Bitcoin is the new gold. Bitcoin is digital gold. Millennials, Gen Z, they don't want gold. They want Bitcoin. They want the best asset, and it's Bitcoin now. So Bitcoin is only $2 trillion. It's attacking gold. It's going to attack the art market. When people want to have a long-term investments, they're going to say, should I buy this Picasso painting or some type of art, or should I buy the Bitcoin? And then you have people like Michael Saylor that are actually attacking the $300 trillion bond market, the $120 trillion money market with all of his preferreds. He's attacking the equity market with MSTR, and he's not the only one doing it. You have Michael Saylor's doing it with strategy. You have Simon with MetaPlanet. So all of these are being attacked right now with Bitcoin, and even the real estate market, what a lot of real estate guys are doing right now. And I think it's just starting to catch on, as you've seen, Grant Cardone. He's, leveraged his, multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio, and he's taken that money and put it into millions of dollars of Bitcoin. And these trends aren't going to slow down. And that's why this chart right here says we are still early to Bitcoin. And this kind of goes into like what we were talking about, the dollar cost average. You may say, well, Bitcoin performed well over the past 10 years, but it's not going to do that over the next 10 years. But Bitcoin has a lot of room to grow. Even if you're just comparing to gold, gold's a $20 trillion, Bitcoin's $2 trillion. That's a 10x from here. So, we are still pretty early, in our opinion. But hopefully that paints another picture. Anything to add there, Sean, about this chart here? Let's see. Oh, you're
Sorry,
on
I
mute.
was talking on mute. Yeah, I think you had mentioned it. This is a little outdated. Bitcoin right now is, since this was first published, has went up to $2.3 trillion. And it's demonetized in these other asset classes. Gold has grown to, I think, over 20 trillion. So there's money that's slowly getting ate from each one of these sectors. And, Aaron had, spoke to it a little bit, but like, you get the real estate market, $30 trillion of value. And, individuals like, Grant Cardone is getting into the space and making Bitcoin treasury companies with his real estate portfolio, leveraging his actual real estate to buy more Bitcoin and put it under his corporate umbrella that owns all of his real estate. And that's going to be a power play for him looking out 5, 10, 20 years, that it's going to outpace his entire real estate portfolio. Now, you don't got to be a Grant Cardone to do this at all. Like, you can, own a few properties, and you can lever it strategically to be able to allow the property, if you have equity, get a HELOC, have the property, the income, the rental income that you're making, pay the HELOC off, or pay the HELOC down, or make the monthly payment. Or, if you're able to, say, buy one coin and you wait X amount of years and you chip off a piece of the coin to get the equity back, the HELOC loan back down to zero. Your strategy can be very, very meticulous, or it can just let your rentals just continue to pay the minimum payment. Now, if it's a floating variable, you got to sort of fluctuate, as it plays out, and it's basically free Bitcoin, free money, and you can prop up your company to where ultimately, if it's an asset your company owns, your company value over time will go up. So if your company value goes up and you have assets under management on the company, then basically you'll be able to lever more to be able to then buy more real estate and or Bitcoin. You have your own flywheel, if you may. Um, Definitely all good stuff. A couple other news items that we just wanted to share really quick. Give us one quick moment. And once again, 150 plus people, tuning in. That's another thing. When the price is down, the sentiment goes down. When the price is up, we get over 1,000 people watching. And
Man,
right now it should be when everybody's watching, but because people aren't focused and don't see what's going on and don't see, that this is an opportunity, then we can sort of see by the viewership. That's just an interesting fun fact for those that don't know.
yeah, every time.
Yeah.
Clockwork.
Let's share this here. Um, Something that Brian Armstrong came out. This is Brian Armstrong, for those who don't know. Most know the application Coinbase, some capacity. That is the most popular platform in the States to go ahead and buy Bitcoin and given digital assets on. He basically says Bitcoin could reach $1 million by 2030 and hit a multi-million-dollar valuation as adoption explodes. And this is the greatest wealth transfer in human history. So we always hear about these wealth transfers that, happen from generation to generation. And, right now, behind the scenes, you're seeing, I know everybody on this stream has seen, all these streamers and influencers, the Jake Pauls of the world, and, people from that caliber, sort of climbing up the ranks of superstardom. And that's not what it's always about, the fandom, but as far as how did Jake make his money, why did he move down to Puerto Rico? He's doing the boxing thing now, but for those that don't know, Jake's been holding Bitcoin for quite some time. And he went down to Puerto Rico because as soon as he moved down to Puerto Rico, he can operate his business at a lower tax rate, but then also his capital gains from the day that he moves there, as long as he stays in compliant with his accountants and such under Puerto Rican law, he can then get 0% capital gains tax in Puerto Rico. So there's a lot of ways to maneuver and move through this space. But the biggest thing, as you see what's happening, is this is someone on the top in the front of Forbes, giving this projection. This is just one person. As Aaron mentioned, you got all these hedge fund managers, these huge, money market makers, these people that have been in the space a lot longer than us and have made careers out of this, multi-billionaires, basically making these same predictions, but also putting their money where their mouth is. They're not just saying this is going to happen. They're also allocating a large percentage. If you look at Michael Saylor's case, he's going all in, and he is already a billionaire before Bitcoin. So put that in perspective. I don't know if you have anything that you wanted to share on that, Aaron.
Yeah, just one thing. What asset is Coinbase buying and putting on the balance sheet? It's not Ethereum, it's not Solana, it's not USDC, and Coinbase is a huge Ethereum. That's Coinbase. They love Ethereum. They're not putting any of those on the balance sheet. They've been taking some of their profits and putting it into BTC. And the CEO here, he said that they're going to continue to buy Bitcoin and put it on the balance sheet. So even the biggest crypto player knows that Bitcoin is the hardest asset, not Dogecoin, not Litecoin, not Ethereum, but Bitcoin.
On that note, there is some Ethereum treasuries that have popped up. Tom Lee being a huge advocate for Ethereum treasury, I think leading the way with his Bitwise, I believe, is Ethereum treasury. So I think he's I think got a 5% allocation as far as the overall Ethereum supply goes. But Tom Lee, in that same breath, is also heavily invested into Bitcoin as well. So just take that for what it's worth. There is other opportunities in the space. Not saying Ethereum won't go up, but some of these Ethereum treasury companies are already positioned into Bitcoin. And will there be seasons? Will there be seasons where Bitcoin gets outperformed? Yeah, there'll be micro seasons, but since the bottom of the bear market to present day, I think everything has gotten decimated against Bitcoin. Could that change? Time will tell, but it seems like we're in that sort of that suddenly moment in the S curve for the adoption phase for Bitcoin, seeing all the money globally continuing to pour into it. So yeah, and then after this, just this other piece that we wanted to share. $6 trillion banking giant UBS says wealthy Chinese family offices are preparing to allocate 5% into Bitcoin. The next wave of global adoption is here. So what does this mean? So of doing a little bit of research, quick chat GPT, Google search, Asian high net worth individuals manage over $10 trillion in assets. So that's the first and foremost thing that you need to know. And given a 5% allocation where they want to start out at, that is a $500 billion investment where they want to start out at. So understand what that means. Let's take a further deep dive into this. So this is coin market cap. You got Bitcoin, the current price, the price action over the past hour, day, seven days. Market capitalization is $2.242 trillion. So a 5% allocation is roughly 500 billion. So this would take this at the current prices from 2.24 up to 2.75. Roughly a 20% bang in the price appreciation if that was all bought in one tranche. So what that would do, where that would take the price up to, as far as just at a 5%, just in Asia, looking at this particular metric here, this would take the price from 112 up to 135,000, and that's if nobody else bought. So understand, once again, not how early we are, but what if that happens simultaneously in different corners of the earth, in different markets, all in one tranche? You could see 135, then we cool off, 155, then we cool off, 180, and we cool off, and then retail might get some FOMO, and then we could blast up to 250 to 300,000, like that. Like, these markets move very volatile to the up and downside. So just understand the opportunity at hand and what is happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
What else we got?
Just to add to that quick, with all that money coming in, it's like, that's a lot of money coming in. Is there even enough Bitcoin for all these people to buy it? So are they going to have to hit the spot market to get their Bitcoin? Like, that could even drive the price even higher if the Bitcoin isn't there, because it's not like they can just print more Bitcoin. So
right. Yeah, it's a scarce asset, so the order books are going to be backed up. And as the order books get backed up, they got to wait for those sell orders to come in to fill all these. So if there's a substantial amount of buy orders versus sell orders, that price can just continue to tick up until it naturally balances itself out. That's how you see the boom and busts of the given cycles.
Yeah. Another thing to mention with that is, I saw Brazil just, I think it was 2 days ago, they are looking to potentially invest $16 billion into Bitcoin with a Bitcoin strategic reserve. And yeah, I think if they did that, I think they're in the early phases of, just looking at the proposal before voting on it, and potentially buying the Bitcoin. But if Brazil was to do that, obviously that's going to be great for the Bitcoin price, but that's going to be very great for the Brazil economy over the next 10, 20 years, because they'll be one of the first one of the first countries to actually buy a substantial amount of Bitcoin and have it as a strategic reserve asset. Yeah, I know that El Salvador has been doing it, but I don't think they have 16 billion worth. And there's a country over in Asia, maybe Bhutan, who's been mining Bitcoin. But I think if Brazil was to do that, they'd be one of the early movers, and I think that would be a great move for Brazil in the long run. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Countries that have been moving towards that adoption curve when it comes to a Bitcoin standard, I think El Salvador has been the first to go, I guess, full throttle in when they've actually made Bitcoin legal tender, and their government's also buying Bitcoin on a daily basis. I believe they're buying at least one Bitcoin a day. I think the government's holdings, I think, is up over 5,000 Bitcoin since they've started that treasury play, um, from a uh, from a nation state level. So since then, there's been a lot of Bitcoin tourism. It's helped their economy. They've cleaned up a lot of the gang violence and stuff. Bitcoin didn't do that. Their government cracked down on that, and then it's one of the most safest places globally present day, from being one of the most violent places as of a couple years ago. So there's been it's a revamp to how they perceive money from a nation state level, but it also brings some of the smartest minds that want to move to these jurisdictions that are invested in these markets, and they just want to feel included, to be able to not sort of have a stigma, not get their bank account shut down, not sort of get taxed to high hell. They want to sort of just be accepted to utilize their investments for what they've purchased. So it's an exciting time. There's a lot of things that are going on, and I know in Dubai and certain parts of Abu Dhabi, they don't have it as legal tender, but you can go to some businesses over there and you can purchase real estate, and you can also purchase cars, sometimes with Bitcoin and or Ethereum. So exciting times. There's an adoption curve, and the waves will continue to expand, across the globe.
Definitely. And then just everybody can see on the screen all the countries that hold Bitcoin, and El Salvador is the one that is constantly getting more, along with Bhutan. So those countries are not slowing down anytime soon. Is there anything else that you wanted to get into here today, Sean?
Yeah, just one last thing, and this is more for people that are searching for more information, trying to understand Bitcoin from an investment thesis. Some people might want to start their own Bitcoin treasury for themselves, their family, their kids. The one resource that you guys can definitely check out is basically, let's share this here. For those that are readers, there might be an audiobook, but basically this is one of the most popular reads by Safety and Amos, the Bitcoin Standard. This will help you get on your way. They actually do have an audiobook with membership. Got to get the membership though. So just keep that in mind, that this is one of the most popular Bitcoin reads. It's a foreword by Michael Saylor. A lot of talking heads in the space are definitely definitely advocate for this book. So definitely check it out. And then a shameless plug here. If you guys want even more information, this is the Crypto Millionaire, getting started with the Bitcoin and Crypto Ultimate Beginner's Guide. Shameless plug. We don't talk about this much on the channel, but these are two books Bitcoin Bros created. If you're just starting and just touching the surface, scratching the surfaces of what Bitcoin is and how to go down your own investment journey, check out this one here. This is an ebook, and you can also order this on Amazon as well if you want a softback or hardback copy. But on the BitcoinBros101.com is where you can find this. And then this here is our technical analysis 101. When you want to get into the weeds, you want to read the charts, you want to see, whether you should buy into asset A versus B or look at the trends of Bitcoin and such, understanding the market cycles. That gets a little bit more in the weeds. So just a couple resources that you guys can also check out. And then to further onto that, this is even more into the weeds. It's about 9 to 10 hours of introductory to Bitcoin cryptocurrency, understand the charts, trading, and more. That is something that, we developed, Bitcoin Bros, things that are, just helpful for individuals in the space. Yep, and that's the shameless plug there.
Cool. Yeah, I think is that it for today's live stream?
Yeah, I think so. We're chilling out still around 112.5K. Once again, not financial advice, anything we talk about in here, but getting that DCA understanding, and understanding, Bitcoin as a whole. That's that Bitcoin standard book, so that's really all that we had. So got about, 182 people, so, shout out to all you guys. The Google Trends on Bitcoin's down. People aren't really thinking about it because it's not making new all-time highs. It's not being exciting. So, you guys are definitely minds in the right place, heads in the right place. Just continue to keep going hard. And we do this every week, Thursday, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. But last week, unfortunately, we missed. Did some travel and stuff. Next week, we got some travel as well. So, we'll see if Aaron and I can fit it into the schedule.
Yep, we'll try to make it every Thursday. If not, you'll get a video. You'll get something. We'll keep you up to date, but appreciate everybody for tuning in and watching. Like, subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're on Twitter, follow us. If you're on Rumble, go ahead and give us a subscribe on Rumble. I don't know, but yeah, I think that's it. Appreciate everybody for joining.
See you guys next week.
All right.